Well, this is a fine example of the beachcomber look, isn't it? Maybe someone who likes to spend some time baking on the sands. This is an amazingly feline room. Now I know what it feels like to be inside Tallulah Bankhead's brain. It's very Hollywood, isn't it? Very showbiz. All this white. Obviously, you can picture people sitting around here drinking little glasses of chilled white wine. I certainly wouldn't let anything red into this room. It's actually quite a comfortable room, but it's somehow rather austere. There really isn't very much ornamentation at all. This is a very baronial room. It really is a touch of ye olde England, but it's not just steakhouse Gothic, actually. It's a very historic room. It's very sympathetic to the rest of the house. Look around at all this magnificent Victorian detailing in the arched windows, for example. I see whoever lives here is a real fan of high technology. Isn't that one of those new compact disc players? This room is also, rather like the sitting room, very theatrical. One feels as if one's on stage, perhaps in this case dressed up like Friar Tuck. But really my favorite object in here is ye old medieval cuckoo clock. Well, this is slightly suggestive of Judy Garland's dressing room, isn't it? But on closer examination, it turns out to be much more Versailles than Broadway backstage. This is a very, very lush room, a very pampering sort of room. It's got very rich paint effects, for example. It's been given a sort of marbleized finish. And on the dressing table here, we seem to have the contents of a fairly large high street chemist. There's an enormous profusion of makeup and cosmetics here. But what I really like about this room are these two figures known as caryatids. That's a structural support shaped like a woman. This whole ceiling is a vast expanse of fabric. And this room, in fact, is very, very extravagant. Look at the blinds, for example. Once again, they're almost over the top. They're very, very romantic and lush. The bed is the size of the Titanic. So let's think about this house. Just consider some of the evidence. The astonishing Robinson Crusoe seashell looking glass. The world's oldest compact disc player. The chemist's shop in the boudoir. And finally, the over-the-top confectionery blinds. So the question is, just what sort of person would live in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Lloyd. So now for our home and studio audience, though not for our panel, here's whose house it is. Caught the panel there peering at the audience reaction. Not behind, perfectly fair, but peering to see what the audience reaction was. Alan.
It's a very small woman with a very large bed. I don't know what she gets up to in order to finance this house. It didn't look as though she owned the whole house, because through the window it looked rather like a sort of Trust House 40, like the old beams, Chelmsford. You could see the other side of the courtyard, the rest of this house, whether she lives in a tiny part of it. So it's a very small woman, lives in a very large bed, and has a gramophone with a cat looking into it. I thought dogs looked into gramophones like that. She's got a cat, a gramophone, a ruched blind, huge bed, and what upset me more than anything was so much hairspray. I need so little, and she had about 40 tubs of hairspray. That's why I really thought it was Daniel LaRue, but I think it's a small woman who uses a lot of hairspray.
All right, Mary.
Well, I thought it had to be an interior designer and a woman. I thought definitely. But it's not that now, so I think it's an actress, perhaps. Oh, all right then.
Not much of one.
That was not one person clapping,
lady.
that was two people giving you half a clap there.
Yes, okay, then it's an actress. All right, so we're looking for somebody. We're looking for somebody who's very rich. She's obviously very, very, very successful, not a newcomer. Been around a bit. Okay, been around a bit. And pop star, singer.
Oh.
So we're looking for...
How about this?
A sexy, singing person who's likes Hollywood-type homes. Lots of money to spend.
Kenneth Williams.
That's terribly difficult for me.
A very good run there you had, Mary.
Oh,
Kenneth.
yes, we've established as a pop singer and a lady, and an attractive lady, I suppose. But what is interesting is that it got a clap when they said she's been around. You see, that got a reaction. So that means it's not a newcomer, not very young, someone perhaps mature, you see. But then, of course, they're not clapping that either. And, of course, if it's pop singing, as opposed to, say, ballad singing, it's not something I know anything about.
All right, well, we'll find out when she comes out. But who is she? Alan?
Well, it's the little woman in the big bed. I mean, she's either got a large husband or two husbands. There are a number of blokes. She's one of a quartet and three of them.
Well, how did you get Little Woman, which they applauded?
Yes,
Well, I mean, Lloyd coming in and banging his head on the skirting and all. It all
Well
seemed
done,
a very
well done.
small house. Perhaps she isn't that little.
Right, Little Woman. Who is the Little Woman?
Well, it's I don't know, something to do with the period makes me feel that it's the sort of Helen Shapiro, Lulu sort of period, that she's not an 18-year-old pop star. And I've run out of names, and she will hate me for it, because I'm that generation myself.
Yes, I was going to say Lulu, you see, because I thought of the hairspray as well, Married
No, Lulu, no,
hairdresser.
she wouldn't have a house like that.
So...
No, this has
So
got to
if-
be
perhaps
something...
it could
Are
be
we
with-
supposed to have a guess at this?
Yes, have a
Could it
guess.
be Marty Kane?
No,
No,
she's
it's
too
not
tall.
Kane. Something Italian, perhaps? Would there be an Italian connotation? Savaroni?
They're
Is
not
it the
going to
red hair?
realise
Is it red hair as well? No.
there's someone who's a singer and a songwriter. It's Lynsey DePaul. Comes through the keyhole. Welcome, Lynsey. I thought they were going to get it.
I thought they were going to get it when you said hair and little and pop. But here I am.
Yes, I was right, wasn't I? It
Yes, I
was
don't think
designed.
And I said a sort
It
of
was
Hollywood home, and of course you
Yes, you were very, very near.
Yeah.
All of you.
But it
I
was
think it was the two
designed,
people
wasn't
who
it?
clapped
It
actress.
was an interior design.
No, I did it all myself.
I don't
like it.
believe a word of it.
No, I don't lie. I love interior design. In fact, a lot of the stippling I did myself because I went to art college and I got books out on how to do it, and I enjoy doing that.
How long have you lived in the house, Lynsey?
12 years.
And wasn't it once upon a time haunted, in fact?
Well, I didn't see my sort of grandmother manifest from the waist up, but what happened was, if you're in a car and you feel that somebody's looking at you and you look round and you find they are, you don't know why you felt that, but we have another sense, apart from the five senses that are obvious. And for 7 years, things would drop off walls and there would be a mirror would drop off a wall and the hook would be in the wall and the chain would be in the back of the mirror. And I'd think, well, maybe the daily lady, while cleaning it, pushed it to the edge of its hook, and I rationalised it. And then maybe my stained glass windows fell down and cracked. And I think, well, maybe a lorry went by and they shook and they fell down. And my keys and my gloves used to land up in the freezer. And I thought, well, maybe in a remiss moment I put them in there. Well, this went on for 7 years, until finally I was lying in bed one night and my little cats were on the end of the bed, and nobody else, I may say, in that big bed. It was like somebody was jangling keys in my ear. So I turned on the light, there was nothing there, I turned it off, jangle, jangle, turned it on, and it was like John Cleese, you know. I said, whoever you are, I said, I was talking to the air in time, I thought, I'm off my rocker. Whoever you are, I said, manifest, and nothing did, of course. So I went off to Michael Bentine and said, could you possibly douse my house for me? Anyway, to cut a very long story short, he came over and found that the pendulum dowser, which he brought over, hung at a bleak angle up my turret stairs, and he sent me down to the country to an abbey, to a man called Dom Robert Petitpierre, chief exorcist of the Church of England, who came up and did an exorcism for an hour and a half. And the main word he used was exit, exit.
And that's what did the trick. That's why by the door you have a sign saying
Exit.
Exactly, to this day. But why did you pick Michael Bentine for this role?
Well, I was doing a game show because I trained as a commercial artist. I was doing this cartoon show and he hosted it. And for no apparent reason, he sat down and he said to me, and I'd never met him, he said, you understand the magic, don't you? And I thought, this man's strange. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you're having a lot of experience. And I've had a lot of very strange supernatural experiences that I don't take drugs and I don't drink, and we're all game for imagination, but so he introduced himself and we became firm friends, and I know he's written books on occult, and so I phoned him.
Well, we wish you very happy, untroubled days in that lovely house, which in fact Alan was obviously much taken with the large bed, obviously kept
Yes.
referring to it.
Now discovered she sleeps in it alone. I'm even
Two
more
cats. I
taken.
end up on the edge, actually.
Two cats.
They move me over, yes. Yes.
Michael Benting will probably organise me to come back as a cat next time. I look forward to it.
So do I.
Well, thank you for sharing
Thank you.
this time with us. This is our Through the Keyhole key, a souvenir, a token of our saying thank you, Lynsey.
Thank you.
We've got to take a break there. We'll be back with number 2 house in just a moment or two, but in a moment. And right now we'll say to Lynsey, thank you from Through the Keyhole.
Thank you.
Lynsey DePaul, we'll be right back.